Barakatah Yahawah, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Racha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is you have the prophets of Yahawah and you have the false prophets. Prophets of Yahawah. And pretty much this lesson was inspired through a video I was watching earlier. The brother Yashalom from the New York camp did. Something he said in that video. The video was a little more than 11 minutes long. Something he said in that video kind of stirred, the idea to do this lesson. Because as you've heard Elder Pastor say before, you have the prophets and you have those that play prophets. And you got a lot of jakes out there that's playing. They're playing games, And they're playing prophet and they're not really prophets. This is why you see them fumbling with all kind of breakdowns and changing things up because they're not stable. But I want to get into this lesson. I got a couple of precepts I jotted down. Let's see how the spirit rolls. I'm going to start off reading this article that I found from Washington Monthly. It's called Baal Worshippers. It's a short article, so I'm just gonna get to the point though. Excuse me. It says ritualistic Baal worship in some looked a little like this. Adults would gather around the altar of Baal. Infants would then be burned alive as a sacrificial offering to the deity. Right, which you had something called Molech, which is another false god, which they did the same exact practices. Now today, they pretty much Jake sacrifices their children to Baal, excuse me, but in a different way. When you see these so-called celebrities and whatever status they are or whatever form of entertainment that they do, when they make it or they want to get bigger or make more money, they sell their children to Molech pretty much, as a burnt sacrifice, because eventually they're all going to be burnt up, and they give them over to these Amalekites, to do all manner of, wickedness, low, debaucherous, things. And this is how Jake is offering their children today to Molech, because eventually that's going to lead to their destruction. All right. It says, amid horrific screams and the stench of charred human flesh. And pretty much when you do the research, when the parents would bring their children to be sacrificed to Molech, or in this case Baal, what would happen was the baby would be screaming. So in order to take their mind off of their baby screaming, what they would do is they would play music, And this is why, when you see that ritual on the Bohemian Grove, when they say that they're burning an effigy, they're not really burning an effigy. They're really burning an actual baby, an actual infant. And what you hear in the background is music playing, And the music playing was just to drown out the sound of the baby, being burnt and screaming. So it says, amid horrific screams and the stench of charred human flesh, congregants, men and women alike, would engage in bisexual orgies. And this is where you get the temple prostitution from, And that was a major offense that Jake committed, many times. That's why the Lord said, you shall not have a whore, I believe it says a whore, or the daughters of Zion, or a prostitute, I forget exactly how it's worded, and a sodomite of the sons of Israel, which when you go back to the word, one of them is Quadash, and on the other one, Quadashah, I believe. And those go back to the temple prostitutes. Because just like the Most High has a priesthood on the right-hand side, these nations have a priesthood on the left-hand side, you know, and these would be the things that they would do in sacrifice to their deities, to their gods. And it entailed all of these different things, like the Midianite women that Jake was dealing with back then. You know, that was the reason why Phinehas ran the javelin through the Jake and through that heathen woman, because not because he was popping her, but because he was popping her in the name of his God. Then you have when you fast forward, you had Antiochus Epiphanes, that when he took Jerusalem, he sacrificed to his God pork and things of that nature, brought in the image of Jupiter, Olympus, and they also had harlots within the temple. And it wasn't just prostitutes. It was, you know, these were those temple prostitutes that they would do what they do in the name of a deity. And this is, you know, the freakism that goes on with these different nations. That's why the Lord said, learn not the way of the heathen, you know. So it says the ritual of convenience was intended to produce economic prosperity by promoting Baal to bring rain for the fertility of Mother Earth. And this, you know, every so-called deity that they have out there, false god, they all have certain rituals that they do to these so-called gods for different things, whether it be agriculture or rain or whatever the case may be, or prosperity or whatever the case may be. You see it in all those different false god worships. You know, you see it among Brujeria, which is big among the Latin tribes. You see it, you know, among Voodoo. You see it among the Orishas, you know, which is a form of Voodoo, which was brought by the Yoruba tribes that were brought over here in captivity. They brought that with them. And, you know, Ephraim and the other tribes, they, you know, that's something that they thrive in. Ephraim is joined to idols, let him alone. So they was all up into that, you know. But today, that same idea is being portrayed today within the truth, you know, of men that dress the part, look the part, act the part, but they're pretty much not. They're nothing more than a false prophet. So you have the prophets of Yahawah by Shem Yahushai, and you have the false prophets. So what I want to get into is the history of, and you could read the rest of it. Like I said, it's very short, but that was the main point right here. Into the history of one instance when this particular thing happened, and that was dealing with Elijah. All right, and the prophets of Baal. Now, as we read through here, you had the 450 prophets of Baal, and then you had 400 prophets of the grove. Now, it doesn't really distinguish whether they're separate from each other, you know, or if they're all the same, and just 400 of them happen to be also prophets of the grove. It doesn't really distinguish, you know. But if the case be that they are 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of the grove, that's 850 false prophets. So we go to 1 Kings 18 and 17. It says, and it came to pass when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said unto him, art thou he that troubleth Israel? Because there was a great famine going on, because there was no rain. And pretty much Elijah put a curse, you know, and held the rain back from Jake because they were being wicked. And you can go into the history, you can go a few chapters back, and it'll go into the whole history. I haven't dealt with that history in a while, so I don't remember every little particular that was going on. I remember just fragments, and I'll have to go back and just refresh my memory on it. But you can go back and read those chapters previous to this one to get the whole history. And Ahab, which was a wicked king of Israel, because all the kings of Israel were wicked. Now the kings of Judah, some were righteous and some were wicked, but all of the kings of the northern kingdom were all wicked. Why? Because they were going to be the first to fall. And Ahab was troubling Israel, but then he had the nerve to blame it on Elijah. because Elijah pretty much asked the Lord to close up the heavens, that it rained not. And it was about a period of about 3.5 years before, that happened. Salakia. So, just bear with me 1 second. So, this is at the very end of that time frame. So, pretty much what Elijah did was he issued Ahab a challenge to bring forth his prophets, and Elijah would prove that he is the prophet of the Most High. And he pretty much put it out there like, whatever Lord answers by fire, that is the true power. And in this time, this is how the Lord is going to answer. But he's going to answer with the actions of sending Yahawah back with the angels to destroy this place by fire again, and deliver his elect. So at this moment here, amidst all of these people, Elijah would represent the elect, and the rest of these false prophets and the king and all that, they would represent the ones that were destroyed. It says, and he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but thou and thy father's house, and that you have forsaken the commandments of the Lord Yahawah B'Shem Yahushai, and thou hast followed Baalim. Now Baalim is the plural way, Baalium, because you had Baal. The word Baal simply means Lord. The word Baal is not a bad word. It simply means Lord. But you did have these different deities that were given this title as if they were the lords over Jake. Because the Lord, all caps, Yahawah, he is our Lord. He is over us, and when we worship other gods, we're calling on those other gods as being our lords. You see? And that's why the Most High gets jealous. This is why when you read Ezekiel, it speaks about the image of jealousy. And what was the image of jealousy? That was these different figures that were put up, that were forbidden by the law, by Jake, to worship them. When you read through the different scriptures, it speaks about Jake taking the blessings from the Most High and offering them and giving the credit to these false deities. And you see that happening today. Jake in the church, whether it's the Southern Kingdom or the Northern Kingdom, giving praises to sweet Jesus or to La Virgen Guadalupe or the Virgin Mary or whatever the case may be. All of these Edomite-looking deities that they're crediting with the blessings that they receive, and not crediting the Most High Yahawah, who's the one actually giving them the blessings. So it says, now therefore send and gather to me. So this Balaam is many different Baals, because there were different aspects of the worship. Then you had the counterpart of Baal, which was Asherah or Ashtoreth. So this was a whole host which goes into the Queen of Heaven, which goes into Tammuz. So all of these different nations that had these different gods, it was all the same story, but they just had different names based off of their language. So it says, now therefore send and gather to me all Israel unto Mount Carmel for what? So that they can be a witness to what was about to go down. And the prophets of Baal, 450, right? These false prophets, and the prophets of the groves, 400. So according to this, there were 850 prophets. It says, which eat at Jezebel's table. Now, Jezebel was a Hamite that was married to Ahab, and she was a wicked demon that was troubling Jake. And Ahab was a simp. He was a henpecked simp that was under the spell of this hoe, Jezebel, and she was doing all manner of types of wickedness. And after this whole ordeal, she pretty much ordered the execution of Elijah, and he fled because he was nervous. It says, so Ahab sent unto all the children of Israel and gathered the prophets together unto Mount Carmel. And Elijah came unto all the people and said, how long halt ye between two opinions? Right? Because The Lord's way is only one way. There's only one doctrine, one gospel, one truth, one Lord. All right. So why are you halting between two opinions? You're being tossed back and forth between who's serving the Lord and who's not. Is it this group? Is it that group? It should be evident by the fruits. Yahawah said, you shall know a tree by its fruits. So Elijah was pretty much, beckoning to the people and letting them know, look, why are you halting between two opinions? If the Lord Yahawah be the Most High, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. So you have to make a decision. There is no in between. There is no straddling the fence. The Apostle Paul said it best. You cannot serve the Most High and devils. Yahawah said you cannot serve the Most High and mammon. Which in the case of, idol worship, it was all about money, prosperity. That's why the Lord said you cannot serve the Most High and mammon. And mammon is a way of saying money. Because these different deities, the reason why they were worshipped was because of prosperity. And this is the main message that's being taught in these churches, the prosperity doctrine. And this is why Jake does what they do, because they're looking for that money. That is the motivation. And this is why the nation's God is really money. Because all things they do is based off of monetary gain. This is why Yahawah said, don't worry about all these different materialistic things. I'm just paraphrasing. For after these things the nations look for. But your Father knows what you have need of. That's why the Apostle Paul came back and said, having food and raiment, be there with content. And Yahawah said what? He said, give us this day our daily bread. Just enough to sustain us. All right. So it says, and the people answered him, not a word. Why? Because pretty much the people were under a spell by Ahab, by Jezebel, by the prophets of Baal, by the prophets of the grove. Just like the people were captivated by Simon Bar Jesus, they were bewitched because he was performing certain miracles that seemed like they were real, but he was pretty much deceiving the people. And Yahawah said it best. He said that there's going to be great miracles that if it were possible, they would deceive the very elect. But it's not possible to deceive the very elect. Why? Because they have that one key ingredient that most Israelites do not have. And that's that Thawah, the eye salve, the Holy Spirit. All right? Then said Elijah unto the people, even I only remain a prophet of Yahawah. But Baal's prophets are 450. Right? Those are the prophets of Baal. Let them therefore give us 2 bullocks, and let them choose 1 bullock for themselves, and cut it in pieces, and lay it on wood, and put no fire under, and I will dress the other bullock, and lay it on wood, and put no fire under. So pretty much what's this? This is a work. Let them work for their offerings, their sacrifice, and I'll work for my sacrifice. So put that in mind, or in context of today, the prophets, whether they're true or false, going out there doing the work. All right? And call ye on the name of your gods. Notice it says gods, plural. And I will call on the name of the Lord, Yahawah. We say today Yahawah B'Shem Yahawah because we know that we cannot get to the Father Yahawah but through Yahawah. And the power that answereth by what? By fire. This is why the Apostle Paul said, I will not know the speech of them that are puffed up, but the power. All right? Show the power. Show the works, not just the words, not just empty talk, not just vain talk. Show the works, to prove that you are a prophet of the Lord. Let him be the Most High. And all the people answered and said, it is well spoken. All right? And it's going to be made known. It's going to be made known in these times who the Lord is dealing with. All right. It says, and Elijah said unto the prophets of Baal, choose you one bullock for yourselves and dress it first, for you are many, and call on the name of your gods. This is why he mentioned above Baalim, Baalium, which is a plural way of saying Baal. And the reason why is because Baal means Lord, and that when they worshipped Baal or Baalim, they were worshiping, they were saying that this was their Lord. But put no fire under. It says, and they took the bullock which was given them, and they dressed it. Now today, the fire and the wood and all of that represents the people, and it represents the word of the Most High. Jeremiah 5:14. It says, wherefore thus saith the Lord, power of hosts, because you speak this word, behold, I will make my words in thy mouth fire, and this people wood, and it shall devour them. And this is how the Lord, Yahawah, would pretty much destroy Jake. Hosea 6:5, by his words through the mouth of his prophets. Therefore have I hewed them by the prophets. Because once you don't listen to the Lord, and you keep getting those, reproofs, corrections, admonishments, and you keep pushing them away, you become the ultimate sacrifice. The Lord hews you down as that sacrifice that's put on the altar and burnt. Therefore have I hewed them by the prophets. I have slain them by the words of my mouth. And thy judgments are as a light that goeth forth. Right? Because the Most High Yahawah, Ba'ashem Yahushai, brings his judgments to pass every day. But it says that the unjust knoweth no shame, because they don't recognize the work of the Lord. They don't recognize his handiwork. They don't recognize his voice. All they hear is noise and thundering, while the elect hear the voice of the Lord calling and warning them and drawing them to the truth so that they can be delivered. So going back, 1 Kings 18:26, and they took the bullock which was given them, and they dressed it, and called on the name of Baal from morning even until noon, saying, O Baal, hear us. But there was no voice, nor any that answered. And they leaped upon the altar which was made. And it came to pass at noon that Elijah mocked them, right? Because here it is, they went through this whole ritual. They set up the altar, they got the sacrifice, they called on Baal, they went through the whole liturgy, jumping up and down on the altar, like you see these madmen in these churches, or you see Preacher Jessup hopping and jumping and oozing and howling, that was what they were doing back then, because that was the way that they would worship their God, or one of the ways. Other ways were, in private and secret. They would have their ritualistic orgies, whether man on man, woman on woman, man on woman, so on and so forth. All manner of adultery and debauchery. Right? So it says, and it came to pass at noon that Elijah mocked them, and he was making fun of them. Because, hey, come on, man, all of you guys out there, you got your your whole setup, make it known. Make it known that the Most High is with you. And there's going to come a time where there's going to be a distinction made. It says, and said, cry aloud, for he is a God. Either he is talking, maybe he's in a deep conversation with another God or something, and he just can't hear you. He's just so locked in that conversation that he can't hear you. Now the scriptures say that the Most High will neither slumber nor sleep. It says, or he is pursuing, or he's chasing somebody. He's on horseback, or in a buggy, chasing another god, that tried to scheme on his kingdom. He's chasing them. Or he is in a journey. Yeah, he went hiking. Or peradventure he sleepeth and must be awake. Yeah, because the alarm clock went up, but he didn't hear the alarm clock. So you got to wake him up. You got to wake him up, shake him up. Right? It says, and they cried aloud and cut themselves after their manner with knives and lancets. Right? Because the Lord requires blood sacrifices. So these nations, when they worship their gods, they also set it up to where they will have to be blood sacrifices, whether it was human, animal, or whatever the case may be. So they would cut themselves in this ritualistic fashion so that their so-called God can hear them. Right? It says, till the blood gushed out upon them. So they were bloody men, literally, trying to get this ritual going, trying to get that fire to come down, trying to get Baal awoke, because he was comatose. And it came to pass when midday was past, and they prophesied unto the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, that there was neither voice, nor any to answer, nor any that regarded. Yeah, because the Lord said, when I called, you did not answer. So when you call upon me, I'm not going to answer. It says, and Elijah said unto all the people, come near unto me. And all the people came near unto him. And he repaired the altar of the Lord that was broken down. And Elijah took 12 stones, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob. Why didn't he take stones for the nations? Yeah? Unto whom the word of the Lord came, saying, Israel shall be thy name. And with the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord Yahawah. And he made a trench about the altar, as great as would contain 2 measures of seed. Now, 1 measure of seed, there's different accounts. Some say that it's like 1.75 gallons, so 2 would be 3 point something gallons, and others say 9 point something gallons, so that would have been like 19 point something gallons. So it all depends on where you get your measurement from. But nevertheless, he built a trench around the altar, right? And he put the wood in order and cut the bullock in pieces, and laid him on the wood, and said, fill 4 barrels with water, and pour it on the burnt offering and on the wood. And he said, do it the second time. And they did it the second time. He said, do it the third time. And they did it the third time. And the water ran round about the altar, and he filled the trench also with water. So there's water everywhere. So there's no way you can light a fire until all that stuff dries up in order to actually get that sacrifice going. It says, and it came to pass at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice that Elijah the prophet came near and said, Lord, power of Abraham, Isaac, and of Israel, let it be known this day that thou art the power in Israel. And the Lord Yahawah B'Shem Al-Shai is going to make his presence known. Let's go real quick to Zechariah chapter 14 and verse 9. And it says, and the Lord shall be king over all the earth. And that day shall there be one Lord Yahawah, and his name one. Okay? Because he's sending his son back to establish the truth upon the earth. And the truth is being taught in the earth, but only a small number are teaching it. Because you have to remember, there are way more false prophets than there are true prophets. All right? It says, and that I am thy servant. Right? That's why it says, and you shall discern who's serving the Lord and who's not. And that I have done all these things at thy word. See? Not because of some sleazy, idol worship ritual. Hear me, O Lord Yahawah, B'Shem Yahushai, hear me, that this people may know that thou art the Lord power. And this is why it's important to exalt those names, especially in these times. And that thou hast turned their heart back again, right? So that there's going to be some that are going to be returned to the Lord. That's why it says that those that hear, they will be converted and be healed. Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice and the wood and the stone. So, in other words, the Most High made his presence known, and made it known at that very moment who he was dealing with. Just like he did it with Moses. When Dathan, Korah, and Abiram and the 250 renowned men rose up against him and Aaron, and the Lord made it known who he was with. And how did he make it known who he was with? By a miracle, a sign, that the earth opened up and swallowed them all them other individuals up with their families and everything, with all their goods, and left Moses and Aaron still standing, and the men that were with Moses and Aaron, Joshua, Caleb, and the rest of the men that were still with him. You see, so the Lord is going to make a distinction in these days who he's with. It says, and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. So all of that water, the sacrifice, everything got licked up by the fire of the Lord. And when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces, because Jake has to see to believe. Yahawah said, blessed are they that have not seen and yet believe. But you have some that have to see to believe, and some of them, that's how they're going to be saved, because that's the spirit that the Lord gave them. It says, and they said, the Lord Yahawah, he is the God. The Lord Yahawah, he is the God. See? And Elijah said unto them, take the prophets of Baal, let not one of them escape. And they took them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon and slew them there. Yeah, so the prophets wasn't no punk. They weren't no punks. They were serious-minded individuals, rough, with the Spirit of the Lord upon them. Samuel hewed King Agag to pieces. The Lord said that the fishes will become hunters. It says, and Elijah said unto Ahab, get thee up and eat and drink, for there is a sound of abundance of rain. So once he established who the Lord Yahawah was dealing with, then he told his wicked ass king to go and eat. Prepare yourself to go home and go eat and drink, because at this point there was a great famine going on. This is why, throughout that whole situation, the Lord had a raven, bring Elijah food. He drank of this, I believe it was a brook, until the brook was gone, then he moved on. But his food and his drink was, secure. Just like the scriptures say that, their drink shall be sure. My servant shall eat, my servant shall drink. You see? So Ahab went up to eat and drink, and Elijah went up to the top of Carmel and cast himself down upon the earth and put his face between his knees and said to his servant, go up now, look toward the sea. And he went up and looked and said, there is nothing. And he said, go again 7 times. And it came to pass at the 7th time that he said, behold, there ariseth a little cloud out of the sea like a man's hand. And he said, go up, say unto Ahab, prepare thy chariot and get thee down, that the rain stop thee not, because it was going to be a torrential rain. Because remember, it hadn't rained in 3.5 years. So this rain was going to come down. It's going to be plenteous. So he said, go, because they were on horseback. They were on chariots, and then the rain would be so heavy that it would not allow passage through the roads. It says, and it came to pass in the meanwhile that the heaven was black with clouds and wind, and there was a great rain, and Ahab rode and went to Jezreel, and the hand of the Lord was on Elijah, and he girded up his loins and ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. Now I want to go to the next chapter, because there was some good meat in here. And Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and withal how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. See? Then Jezebel sent the message unto Elijah, saying, so let the gods do to me, and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. And when he saw it, he arose and went for his life. So, Elijah got nervous and took off, just to show you that a man of the Lord, as powerful and as great as he is, still a man, still in the flesh. Now, did Elijah fall out the truth because he doubted for this moment? No. This is just the nature of man. Men lose heart sometimes. As long as we're in the flesh, we're going to lose heart. And there's many examples of men that lost heart in the scriptures, but they still forged on to fulfill their mission. The greatest example is Yahawah. You have Gideon, a great man of the Lord. He was very doubtful. But guess what? The Lord was still with him. So it all depends on who the elect is and who the elect is not with. Bottom line. and came to Beersheba, which belongeth to Judah, and left his servant there. Right, so he took off. He bounced. He bounced even on his servant. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a juniper tree, and he requested for himself that he might die. Right, because he's, not, he's thinking carnal at the moment, and said, "It is enough now, Lord, take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers." Right, because he was in the bitterness, and the prophets were always in bitterness, chafed in the spirit. And as he lay and slept under a juniper tree, behold, then an angel touched him and said unto him, "Arise and eat." And he looked, and behold, there was a cake baking on the coals, and a cruse of water at his head. And he did eat and drink, and laid him down again. And the angel of the Lord came again the second time, and touched him, and said, Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for thee. And he arose, and he did eat and drink, and went in the strength of that meat for 40 days and 40 nights unto Horeb, the mount of the Most High. All right, and you had this story about the so-called, I don't know if he was a pastor, that tried to do a 40-day fast, and he just dropped dead. You can't do that today. Men back then were a lot stronger. It says, "And he came thither unto a cave, and lodged there, and behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and said unto him, What doest thou here, Elijah?" Right, what the hell are you doing here? Didn't you see that great miracle I just did, in my name, at your request, pretty much? And he said, "I have been very jealous for the Lord power of hosts." And he was. "For the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thy altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, even I only am left, and they seek my life to take it away." And he said, "Go forth and stand upon the mount before the Lord." And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind rent the mountains, and brake in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. And it was so, when Elijah heard it, that he wrapped his face in his mantle, and went out and stood in the entering in of the cave. And behold, there came a voice unto him, and said, "What doest thou here, Elijah?" And he said, "I have been very jealous for the Lord power of hosts, because the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thine altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, even I only am left, and they seek my life to take it away." And the Lord said unto him, "Go, return thy way to the wilderness of Damascus. Those that have ears to hear, eyes to see." Elijah went to the where? Wilderness. Who else went to the wilderness? "And when thou comest, anoint Hazael to be king over Syria. And Jehu the son of Nimshi shalt thou anoint to be king over Israel. And Elisha the son of Shaphat of Abel Meholah shalt thou anoint to be prophet in thy room. And it shall come to pass that him that escapeth the sword of Hazael shall Jehu slay, and him that escapeth the sword of Jehu shall Elisha slay. Yet I have left me 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which hath not kissed him." So pretty much, the Lord left a complete number of prophets that have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal, nor kissed him. Now, what does it mean by kissed him? Meaning they didn't give their devotion over to these deities. Let's go to Hosea 13:2. "And now they sin more and more, and have made them molten images of their silver, and idols according to their own understanding." So this is Jake, specifically the northern kingdom, bowing down to these idols. All of it, the work of the craftsmen. They say of them, "Let the men that sacrifice kiss the calves." In other words, give homage, tribute, credit to these different gods. And this is why the scriptures say, let's go to Psalms chapter 2 and 12. "Kiss the Son, lest he be angry." So give that reverence to the Son. Give that reverence to Yahawah. Give that reverence to Yahawashi. Because if you kiss these idols, you're going to be destroyed, and you perish from the way. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and you perish from the way, when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him. All right, so there is a number of true prophets that are not going to sway either way, because you got a lot of weird shit going on with these different camps. Weird doctrines being taught that were never taught. You know, funny shit that they're doing. So it makes you wonder, did they sell out? You know, did they sell the Lord out for bags? There's a lot of weird shit going on, man. You know, things that you would never thought you would hear among the Hebrew Israelites. Doctrines that you would never thought you would hear from the Hebrew Israelites. They're just getting waxing worse and worse. And that's pursuant to prophecy. And remember, once you take a bag from these devils, you're in their pocket. So you got to do what they tell you to do. That's why the scriptures say, make no covenants with them. Make no covenants with them. It means what it says. Because once you make a covenant with them and you take money from them, now you belong to them. In essence, you're kissing them. Because now you have proclaimed them to be your Lord. And this is why if anyone takes the MOTB, which is the CHIP, they make these international banking families their God. And that's how they kiss it, or kiss them. Let me read. Salaki, I know you brothers are putting some beautiful precepts. I see KDC's hot on the trail. The wilderness, baby. Ecclesiasticus 20 and 29. Presents and gifts blind the eyes of the wise. Yep. And stop up his mouth that he cannot reprove. Yep. Weird stuff indeed. Yep. Psalms 141 and 4. Incline not my heart to any evil thing, to practice wicked works with men that work iniquity. And let me not eat of their dainties. Beautiful. Beautiful. Because that's what they're doing it for. Those dainties. You know, those goodies. Psalms 94 and 20. Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by law? Right. So, a couple more precepts that I have here is... Let's go, because we're still dealing with the kissing part of these idols. Let's go to Exodus 23 and 13. And in all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect and make no mention of the name of other gods, neither let it be heard out of thy mouth. And what does that mean? That means that you're giving reverence. So when the IUIC says Most High in Christ bless, what they're doing is they're giving reverence to pretty much a Caesar Borgia, because that's not the Lord's name, and they know the Lord's name. And it's not a hard thing to say Mashiach or Yahawah and then explain it. Just like it was explained to them. Neither one of us spoke Hebrew before coming into the knowledge, and they explained it to him, and we understood it. Oh, it's too hard because it's another language you'll be speaking to them. Yeah, but when you break those names down, it's very simple, very easy. And they could easily go back and look it up as to what the meanings are. You know? Amazing. Now, let's go from there. Let's go to the book of... Because calamities are coming. And when these calamities come, you know, keep calling on the name of your gods. You know, don't look to the Most High, Yahawah B'Shem Yahawashi. Look to your gods, the ones that you know, give all this reverence to. There's a scripture in Joshua. Is it 2 and 6? Nope. It's in Joshua. It says, call on the name of your gods or something like that. I thought it was either the 2nd chapter or the 10th chapter. But you know, you brothers know what I'm speaking about. Try one more, and then if not. Nope. All right, so you brothers know what I'm speaking about. So let's go from there. Let's go to Hosea. Matter of fact, before we go to Hosea, let's go to Isaiah chapter 8. And verse 10. No, I'm sorry, not 10. I think that's 18. Yep. Behold, I and the children whom the Lord hath given me are for signs and for wonders in Israel from the Lord of hosts, which dwelleth in Mount Zion. And when they shall say unto you, seek unto them that have familiar spirits, and unto wizards that peep and that mutter, should not a people seek unto their power for the living to the dead? Right. And this is what we're supposed to be seeking to the Lord Yahawah Bashem Yahushai. Here we go. KDC got it. The water bro. Judges 10 and 13. Yet you have forsaken me and served other gods, wherefore I will deliver you no more. Go and cry unto the gods which you have chosen. Let them deliver you in the time of your tribulation. Beautiful. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Right, because Psalms 96 and 4, for the Lord is great and greatly to be praised. He is to be feared above all gods. For all the gods of the nations are idols, but the Lord Yahawah Bashem Yahushai made the heavens. Joshua 24:15, and if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord Yahawah Bashem Yahushai. So let's go to the last precept, which is in the book of Hosea, chapter 2. And let me find the verse real quick. Excuse me. 12. And I will destroy her vines and her fig trees, which is dealing with the worship of these idols, whereof she have said, these are my rewards that my lovers have given me, right? So they credit all of these benefits that they're getting to these different gods, false gods. And I will make them a forest, and the beasts of the field shall eat them. The beasts of the field are these heathens. And I will visit upon her the days of Balaam. See, all of those different gods that Jake is worshiping, wherein she burned incense to them. And she decked herself with her earrings and her jewels, and she went after her lovers and forgot me, saith the Lord Yahawah Bashem Yahushai. Therefore, behold, I will allure her and bring her into the wilderness and speak comfortably unto her. And I will give her the vineyards from thence, and the valley of Achor for a door of hope, and she shall sing there, as in the days of her youth. And we're singing right now, as in the days when she came up out of the land of Egypt. See? So we're singing right now the song of redemption. It says, and it shall be at that day, the new song, saith the Lord, that thou shalt call me Ishi. Now the word Ishi goes to the Hebrew word Ayasha. You know, Ayasha is my husband or my Lord, and shall call me no more Baali, which is Baalia, which is my Lord. In other words, the Most High is still our Lord, but not Jake ain't going to be giving credit to these false gods, these false names. For I will take away the names of Balaam out of her mouth, and they shall no more be remembered by their name. Why? Because the Lord's name, Yahawah Bashem Yahushai, will be exalted in that day. All right? So you have the true prophets and you have the false prophets. And the time is coming where they will be distinguished. It will be distinguished who is serving who. You know, who's serving the Most High and who is not. And we personally can't wait for that day, because there's a lot of effery going on in today out here, especially among Jake that know that they're Israelites. 2nd Ezra 16 and 73. Then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as gold in the fire. So the Lord is going to make a distinction of who he's dealing with. you know, and we're waiting. You know, we believe wholeheartedly and sincerity, not in bragging or boasting, that the Lord Yahawah B'Shem Al-Shai is dealing with us with great millstone. And it's going to be known who the Lord is dealing with, and we'll find out. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say, Shalom.